Hello there, it's Tracy Elsom, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator based in Canada. Today's project is one that I have been thinking about for a little while. I obtained a nice wooden frame recently. It's a 5" by 7" frame, and I thought it would be nice to put a scene inside it. So I've been thinking about doing some sponging, and just recently I've been doing a lot of sunsets and that kind of thing. So I thought it would be fun to try a moonlight nighttime scene, and I haven't really had an idea of what I'm going to do. I've got two stamp sets out that I'll probably use. One is High Tide, which is a really nice stamp set. I'm not going to use the lighthouses, but I'll probably use some of the other images. And the other one is Awesomely Artistic, and I particularly wanted to use this big floral image. I was looking for some kind of natural shrub or something like that to go in the foreground, just to give it a little bit of interest there. So that's what I'm planning on using. So I'm starting with a piece of very vanilla card. It's cut 5" by 7". That's what the frame says. In fact, the hole in the front, this piece, is actually slightly smaller than 5 by 7, so I can work on a piece this size and it will fit in the frame nicely, and some of the edges you just won't see. So let's get started. I think what I'll do to start with is I'm going to mask off some little areas sort of at the front to create some land and some foreground. So all I'm going to do is literally just take a piece of scrap paper, and I've just torn a piece, so I will just lay it on top of there. I think we'll start with garden green and a piece of sponge. So literally just starting off and just adding some colour to that area. I think that's roughly where the shrub is going to go. So I'm going to just move the piece of paper and I'll sponge a little bit there. As you can see, the best way to sponge is to build up the layers gradually. Don't try and put on too much at once, otherwise you end up great splodgy marks. But doing it gradually like that, you can actually see how I'm working on that area. Let's add a little bit more there, and I think I'll change colour. I'm going to go to a darker colour, always artichoke, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that there as well. Okay, so that'll do to start. Now I want to put a horizon line and an area for water, so I will place that there, and I think we're going to do the water. I'll start it in Marina Mist. So let's do this, give that a little bit of a cover, and paper there. So we'll just work on that. Let's make sure that water is straight. So I'm just going to line that up on the lines of my grid paper, and I'll just make sure that this horizon line there is lined up as well. So I'm not going to worry about masking it too much. Like a little bit of something that shouldn't be on that sponge, but that's all right. I will get that covered up. I do actually have one sponge for every colour of ink that I use. Obviously this sponge has got mixed up and touched the wrong pad at some point, but I will, when we're done, I'll wash it out. Okay, so there's some water there. going to make it a little bit darker. So I think I'll use Island Indigo. And I'll get the sponges out. I keep all my sponges in these, well, I suppose they're tackle boxes really. Each box holds 16, so I've got 3 boxes, and that covers all 48 Stampin' Up! Colours, so that's quite nice. Okay, oh, that's better. So again, I'm not looking for a really solid single colour against the water, because like most things in nature, nothing is absolutely flat and same colour. So having done that, now I'm going to just place a couple of pieces there like that. And I will get out from the High Tide stamp set, I'm going to get this water image. That on my block. Okay. That's fine. Okay, so that's the water done. It looks quite stark at the moment, but as we gradually build up the image, you'll see that it will all start to fit together. Right, so the next thing I want to do is to create a mask for the moon. So I've got a 1-inch circle punch, and this is a full adhesive post-it note. Basically, there's a little strip here that doesn't have adhesive and the rest of it does, which is really useful when you're doing sponging. That way you don't have any bits lifting. The only snag, of course, is because there's no bit to lift it with. It can take a little while to get it off the backing paper. There we go. So I think let's put the moon up in this area here. So basically all that's done is that's covered up the moon so that we can sponge around it and create our sky. So I'm going to go back to the Marina Mist now, and quite simply sponge all over the sky. Now I've already managed to get indigo ink on my hands, but when you're sponging you're laying down lots and lots of colour, so it creates a lot of ink that will go into the card, but also there's a lot on the surface, and sometimes you can end up with it all over your hands. So I tend to just grab a piece of kitchen paper just so I can use that to hold down what I'm working on, so that most of it goes, if there is any loose ink, it goes onto the paper, not onto my fingers. Okay, so as I've already got blue at that level, I'm not going to worry too much about masking that off. If I was doing a daylight scene and I was doing sea water and then I had a lighter top, I would need to mask it off, otherwise I'd end up with blue all over everything. And what I like to do is when I get to either the sun or the moon, depending on what you're doing, I tend to go round and round it, because you tend to get a little bit of a halo that way, which is quite nice. Okay, so that's with just the Marina Mist ink, and actually you can see how that would be quite a nice daylight kind of scene. So now I'm going to darken that up a little bit, and I'm going to use some Dapper Denim. Now this is going to bring in a again, I'm bringing that circle around, not going too close to the edge because I want it to create a little bit of a halo there. So, and again, gradually building up the ink, just swirling it around in little circles, not worrying about getting a really solid covering of colour. To be honest, if you want a really solid single colour, it's a lot quicker to just cut some card, that colour, if that's really what you want. The idea here is we want to actually build up the colour and create a much darker, graduated scene. And any little lines that you see like there, that will all disappear by the time we finish. You won't notice those, so don't worry about those too much. And then along the C line here, along the horizon line, if it's a little bit darker than the rest, I'm not worried. If it's a little bit lighter, I'm not worried, because again, once you get down to the horizon line, you will notice naturally that the colour's slightly different there. Just be careful you don't. There we go. And that's building up nicely now. So that's the Dapper Denim. Now I'm going to move to an unusual colour, probably you'd think, for the sky. It's Perfect Plum. It's a nice purple colour. I do like how it just brings some extra dimension to the sky. And again, just move the ink around, creates a very moody effect there. And in fact, if you were to build up your layers of ink like this and then drop water onto it, where you get the spots, the lower layers of ink colour tend to come through, which creates a really nice effect. Just blending that round. A bit more up there. See how that's building up. Right, let's swap to an even darker colour. This is Night of Navy, and this will make a big impact on this. You can see now where the Perfect Plum that we've just put on is now sort of blending into the background. It doesn't look so purple as it did. It's just creating a different depth of colour. Okay, so we'll leave that for the moment. Now I want to put the image on the bottom here, and thinking about the colour I want to use, I think I will probably go with a dark colour. Let's try it with Garden Green. Let's have a look and see what look we're going to get with that. Might not be big enough, dark enough rather. I'll just clean off that stamp with my stamping scrub, and And we'll try it with Always Artichoke. I'm not decided when I started whether I would use a green or even perhaps a blue stamp. I think the Always Artichoke might not be enough. I'll tell you what. Let's go with the garden green. So just make sure that stamp is good and inked up. Press that down there like that. And we'll put a little bit more on this side. There we go. That's good. Now, I'm going to take my aqua painter. This aqua painter is empty, as I usually leave my aqua painter empty. Most of the time I actually use it empty, so it's literally just an empty aqua painter. I'll dip it into some clean water, dry it off, and then pick up some ink. So what I want to do here is just very quickly add some colour. To these leaves. Now obviously this is water on the tip of this aqua painter, so it is going to move around the ink that I actually stamped the image with. It's also going to move around the ink of the sponging. So just adding some colour there, not being too particularly careful. At night when you've got shrubs and things like that, you don't actually see an awful lot of the detail. So I just want to add some colour. Probably can't even see that. I'm just adding a little bit more each time, building up the colour. So the image that I stamped is really just a way of giving me a little bit of a hint on where to put some ink. So that's all done. I'm going to do the same on this side. It's a lot smaller, so it wouldn't take so long to do. Okay, just wipe that off, give that a bit of a clean. Right, okay, so now I'm going to use the birds that are in the High Tide stamp set. Clean off my water. We now have the birds, and I'm going to do those in Night of Navy. Before I do that, I think I should pull off this moon. Oh, that's a little bit too bright. So, easy way to tone that down is just to take, this is Marina Mist ink. I've not re-inked the sponge. I've just, it's what's the ink that's already on it. There we go. Just tone that down a little bit. And I've also got a sponge that's had some crushed curry ink on. So give that a little bit of a rub on there as well. So that's now toned down that bright white circle. So I've got a better look at the sky. So here's the Night of Navy ink. Stamp up my birds. And I quite like when you have things like scenes like this, it's nice to have something going across the face of the sun or the face of the moon, just to break up the image a little bit. There we are. So that's that. Okay. Also in that stamp set, the High Tide stamp set, are some small grasses, and I'm going to use those as well. So this is two little sets of grass, and I want to do those in always artichoke. So we'll just add a little bit of looks like my always artichoke needs a little bit of re-inking, but that's fine. We can cope. And then, as you don't drop your stamp, let's add a few of these as well. And these. Stamp a few just at the bottom of these, as if you've got the grass sort of moving through. So there we go. What do we think? Does it need anything else? I think maybe. Just looking at the wading birds that are here. I think the wading birds are the wrong scale for this image, so I'm not going to bother with those. It's always one of those things that when you look at a scene as to whether or not you think it needs something, it's a case of, does it look as if there's the right scale? So the birds are flying across, it looks as if the birds are coming towards us. The larger images in the foreground, again, make it look as if the plants are in front of us rather than behind us. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of always artichoke ink to those images, just to darken them up a little bit more over here. Now I could have masked these off, and you know, with some of the images I do mask off, some I don't. It just depends. Sometimes the effect I want to create, and sometimes it's how lazy I'm feeling, to be honest. Do I feel like spending time masking? Or so this is a much darker green, and I'm just adding it. Right, I think there might be a little bit of shadow. On these images. Okay, so that's that. There's just one more thing that I want to do, with the sea there, or the water, is I have some crushed curry ink. I'm just going to add a little bit to this sponge, and I just want to add a little circle of crushed curry ink just to that water, just to give the impression of the moonlight reflecting off the water. Right, so let's have a look. Let's open up the back of this frame and see how it looks. Rip out the little piece of paper and drop our picture in there. Put the back on the frame. So it's together. And there we have it. There's, hope you can see, a moonlit scene. Very simply done. And maybe I'll put a sentiment on it later, but I'm quite happy with that as it is at the moment. So I hope that's been fun. Maybe you could try it for yourself, thinking about the way the colours layer, and just sponging with a simple piece of paper mask and seeing what you come up with. I hope you have a lovely day crafting, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.